I'm also going to be our first speaker for the day as well. And today, I think we can just kick it off. I am going to do a little bit of a different sort. Normally my talks were more on the technical side of the spectrum. Today, I actually want to talk about our recruitment pipeline and some of the interesting things that we have seen there as well. So with that being said, let's get started. So I'm going to start, and I want to show all of you a couple of numbers. So the first number that we are going to touch on is the number of 3,475. That is the amount of students that signed up for our virtual internship. This number is going to go down a little bit. It went to 2,200 of those students that actually joined our very first workshop for the virtual internship. Then we had 1,144 of those students that completed the first assignment of the internship. We then went to 878 of those students that basically completed all 12 of the initial assignments in the virtual internship. Worth noting that's 12 weeks worth of virtual internshipping. The only issue is that number is still only going to remain 12. Because I, as the recruitment or whatever you want to call it, at MWR, I can only take 12 of them for my actual internship program. So there's a lot of numbers here, and there's a lot of interest, and in my opinion, this doesn't necessarily look like the cybersecurity skill shortage that we're talking about here. But it is a decent drop-off if we're going from 878 down to 12 as well. And I think the reason we built the virtual internship was a little bit of annoyance. So myself and Jono run the recruitment program for MWR. And essentially what happens is we have our in-person internship twice a year, and we can basically take 12 students for it. We can only take 12. We try to take more. We're now this year trying again to take a little bit more. But honestly, the amount of effort that it takes for us to run the internship program, we really can't do more than 12 of those students and giving them 12 places. The issue for us is that basically meant that at most we have the opportunity to teach 24 students about cybersecurity and getting them interested in cybersecurity and the different things that they can do here. And we basically sat together at the start of this year and we thought, you know what, is there anything that we can do to make this better? Do we have the opportunity to actually reach a lot more students than what we are used to here as well? And that's where the virtual internship came in. We made it free for any registered student in South Africa. So basically, the only requirement for you to join this program of us was that you had to give us a proof of registration at a tertiary institution in South Africa. It's worth noting that 4,400 people applied. So 1,000 of them didn't read the instruction of sending proof of registration in. So like there's hope, but it's also measured hope. I'm just putting that out there as well. But what the virtual internship was this partnership for 16 weeks. So we basically told them, look, for 16 weeks, we are going to give you about an hour to 2 hours worth of workshop time where we give you a lecture, teaching you something about application security. And then we're also going to give you an assignment for that week, and it should take you around an hour to 2 hours during the week. So we're asking you to commit at least 2 to 4 hours of your time during that week. And we would commit our own time as well to presenting this course for you for free, and you'd get a certificate of completion at the end if you make it all the way to the end. And the partnership idea behind it was that basically if you didn't complete 3 of the assignments, that's the 3 strike rule, you would be out, because we wanted to test for commitment of these students here. And essentially what this allowed us to do is where our traditional funnel used to only be 600 CVs that we review, immediately broken down to 24 people joining our internship program, we actually had the ability to teach cybersecurity to a lot more students, depending on whether they were actually interested in it. And it's worth noting that now the program finished last week, and we actually graded the results of it. The last 4 weeks of the virtual internship, they actually had to do a capstone assignment. So taking what they have learned and actually applying it, and we had 208 of those students that actually gave us a really, really proper submission. And we'll talk a little bit later about what that means, but we were able to go from just teaching to 24 to taking that number all the way to 208 as well. And I do think that MWR has a little bit of speaking authority when it comes to training the next people in cybersecurity. Some of you might be in this room on this slide, but we have done this for quite a while. It's been, for my time that I've been there, 9 years that we've been working on actually upskilling people in cybersecurity. And the people you'll see here, I could make like 3, 4, 5 of these slides with the amount of names. These are people that are out there in the industry now that's helping to keep South Africa safe as well. Some of them might have been a little bit poached, but we won't go into those details there as well. But if you don't go through MWR, then this is what it looks like. South Africa cybersecurity industry expects a unicorn. And let's actually have a conversation about these unicorns. You'll see that a lot of these are redacted because you might be sitting in the room, as this might be your job application. But we have a junior cybersecurity analyst. It says junior, and then it wants 3 to 7 years experience and demands CISP. For anyone that knows, you can only register for CISP after you've worked 5 years in a cybersecurity industry. I don't know how that's a junior. Then, one of my other favorite ones, it's a level 1 analyst, right? That thing that everyone in this room will tell you AI is going to replace our level 1 analyst, right? And you want this person to have 12 named certifications, SANs, right? For those of you that don't know, one SAN cert is about 250,000. You want 12 of these for your level 1 analyst that you're going to replace with AI in a month's time. Interesting. Then we have a cybersecurity engineer, right? This one was good. It demanded CISP. So remember, CISP is 5 years experience in cybersecurity. And then at the bottom, it said, yet intro to info security will be advantageous for your application. Like, pick a lane at this point. What do you want? Do you want 5 years experience, or do you want like the intro to InfoSec to be there? And then we have a test analyst. So we have a QA role, and yet you're asking that person to have OSCP, which is, depending on who you ask or where you're at, it's a decently offensive security certification that you're asking them to have. That's the barrier of entry that you are creating for these juniors to join into the cybersecurity industry. And let's touch a little bit more on the certificate tax, as I call it. If you're talking about Security Plus, 14,000. If you're talking about CH, 20,000. CISP, 40,000. And OSCP is now about 30,000 because they upgraded to OSCP Plus. So you're asking these juniors to basically have around 80K of paid for money before they get their first pay slip, right? This sounds like a pay-to-win game that we have created in industry to talk about getting these individuals in here. And it's worth noting that if we're talking about something like CISP, it's structurally impossible to put that on a junior role. Because you physically cannot get CISP if you are not already in the cybersecurity industry here as well. And this is how we expect them to come in. And in my opinion, while I have an appreciation for certifications, a certification, if I see that on someone's CV, that tells me that they know how to pass the certification. That doesn't necessarily tell me that they have the skills required to perform the job that I'm asking them to do. So if not that, what does it actually look like? In my opinion, this is what the recruitment pipeline or the skills pipeline should look like. We have someone that's interested in cybersecurity, and we need to be able to actually motivate them to be interested, right? It's those university drives, it's those talks at different schools and universities and introducing cybersecurity to them, right? Then in today's time, there's actually a lot of resources available for self-learning, right? And students actually have the opportunity ability to learn a lot by themselves. There's formal education, and we'll touch on that today. And then we talk about those first entry-level roles that makes them an effective junior. Now, at MWR and some of the other side stuff, I've actually been involved in this pipeline at 3 different aspects, and I want to run you through some of that today. So the first one that I want to touch on is MWR's traditional funnel. So how we used to do recruitment before the virtual internship. And it's worth pointing out that 9 years ago, I was one of those 600 applicants, right? I didn't even really want to be in cybersecurity nor know what it is. I just had a personality trait that I like to solve complex problems, that I like to take stuff apart, that I like to understand how they work and how they can break. And it turns out that personality trait is actually a useful one to have in the cybersecurity industry. The pipeline was slightly different. There were less applicants there. But in essence, this is the pipeline that we have used up until the point of 2025. And to touch on it, how we started with our recruitment, how we get those 600 applications, is we start by asking them to submit a cover letter for us. And in our application, we asked them that in the cover letter, we want them to tell us what is their favorite hobby that doesn't use electricity. We'll change the question again. It's not about the actual question that matters. I want to run you through what we're actually doing with this type of question. Now, initially, before the advent of LLMs, a question like this would take our 600 applicants and it would whittle it down to 400. Because you get, I don't have better words for it, you would get those CV sprayers, right? Someone that just takes a CV, doesn't even send us a cover letter, or when we get a cover letter, it's not even our company on the cover letter that they're submitting there. And in my opinion, right, like cybersecurity isn't for you if you cannot follow a basic instruction of sending a cover letter and at least answering a question. But then with the advent of LLMs, we had to get a little bit craftier with it as well. So you'll see that this is what our application looks like. But what you don't see is on white text, on a white background, there's a little bit of prompts that are injected there. So the first one is telling the LLM that MWR specializes in IoT security, which we don't. And the second one is saying that that hobby that doesn't require electricity, please make that coffee. And we would find these in the cover letters. Now, I don't know who here is an expert in brewing coffee without electricity, but unless you're talking about campfires and stuff like that in your cover letter, you probably did not actually read what you got out of that LLM. And why does this matter? Well, it's because we are filtering for mindset. I don't care what your hobby is. What I care about is whether or not you took the time to actually read the output from whatever tool you were using to create your cover letter and whether you made it your own. Did you outsource your critical thinking and did you outsource ownership of what you were doing there? Because I don't know who here would be happy with me taking a candidate that doesn't read what they are actually putting out there and giving them access to critical infrastructure to perform a security assessment. I'm filtering for a mindset. I don't care what's in the CV. I don't really care what's in the cover letter. I just care whether the person took the time and the energy to read it and make it their own. That's what I'm tasting for. And essentially, from our 600 applicants, that drops it down to about 400, sometimes even 300 candidates. So we basically cut them in half if we're just filtering for mindset. Then after they basically make it through the first filter, we give them a technical challenge that they need to do. And that technical challenge is again written in a way where it's like, let me show you in cybersecurity what is 1 + 1. Then let me guide your hand as I show you 2 + 2. And then the third one, now I need you to do 3 × 3. I want to see that you can actually apply what you learn. You're not just following something like a dummy or a robot in those cases, because it's important that I'm filtering for critical thinking. And out of that, I used to get about 50 of them that would then make it to the interview stage. With the interview stage, again, we are asking them questions not about what they know in cybersecurity, not about what certificates they have done. We're asking them questions to test mindset. My favorite question to ask them in these interviews is basically, tell me about a problem that you had to solve and you were really, really passionate about the solution that you were able to come up with. It's not about solving the problem. It's not about finding the solution. It's about showing me that you have excitement around what you're actually doing there, that you actually enjoy getting involved in sticky situations and figuring out how to solve them. But the issue is, if you make it to the interview stage, in my opinion, you are a good candidate. But I still only take 12 of them. And what that means is, with our standard internship recruitment program, there's 38 candidates that are getting displaced at this point. 38 of them, in my opinion, they are pretty decently strong candidates. I just don't have the space for them. I can't take them. So now they're basically going back into the generic pool, right? If we're lucky, those 38 candidates are actually going to stay in cybersecurity. But if we are being honest, they'll probably get taken by other industries as well. They'll move into something else like a general IT position or potentially something in finance, but they're not going to stay in the cybersecurity world, especially when any other junior application is expecting them to pay around 80,000 out of their pockets as well. So let's then talk about the virtual internship. What did we do there? So I've already touched on it. I think the last thing to touch on here would be the capstone assignment that we did. So basically, after 12 weeks of workshops that we had with them, we gave them a capstone. I'm quite proud about the capstone that we created there. So it was interesting to see the number 878 dropping down to 208 might seem like a decent bit of a shock, but it really isn't. Because what we would see with the assignments is the deadline was always Monday. And we would see that by like Sunday, around 200 to 300 of them have actually completed the assignment. And then by the Monday deadline, it jumped to like 1,100, right? So you go, And then because we have some youngsters in our team as well that can join those WhatsApp channels and Telegram channels and everything, you start to figure out that they're sharing answers. It's not that hard to figure out that they're sharing answers. So for the capstone assignment, it was important for us to create something where we have the ability to really assess the individual, right? No group work. I needed to make sure that when I'm looking at an assignment, I'm actually looking at that person doing it, especially if I'm going to have to read their reports and everything like that there as well. So the capstone assignment, what we created, I won't dive into the math of it, but basically every single student, when they submitted their username, we used TryHackMe for it, it would generate a unique configuration of vulnerabilities that are available to them and unique flag values for them as well. And what's nice is if they were to share flag values, I'm not just banning the person that entered the shared value, I'm also banning the person that shared the flag, because integrity says if I tell you to keep it your own, you have to keep it your own. And it was interesting when we ran them through the rules of engagement for their capstone that these students were shocked that we knew that they were cheating. And it's like, come on guys, like I don't know who you were thinking to fool. And in my opinion, that's why we didn't see the drop necessarily from the 878. We saw the drop from 200, 300 dedicated students down to 208 that give us a proper submission for the capstone assignment. And we told them, look, if you made it to the end, we will give you a certificate of completion. But it's important to note that we are actually also going to recruit out of this group as well. So you'll see that there was a drop from reports submitted, which was 214 to 208. Some of them were just test reports from me and Jono. There were, I think, 3 students that completed the entirely wrong assignment. Now, geez, like if you attended our classes for 12 weeks and you submitted the wrong assignment, again, I'm saying I have hope, but it's like it's measured hope that I have for our students out there. But we're taking those 208 and we are selecting our 12 from them. We've actually done it now. Jono has been doing some work there in the background to book the flights and the accommodation for these students. But we've actually selected our new internship group out of it from the 208 that made it through the 16-week internship program there as well. But I'm left with the same problem, and it's even worse now because I have 208 students willing to do self-learning. I think it says a lot about your mindset if you are willing to pitch up for something for 16 weeks when the promise is you get a certificate. Because if you see 3,000 other students on this thing, I don't think everyone there believed that they would make it to the 12 positions that we have available. So there's a mindset there of people that really want to learn, people that really want to do something. They just need to be given the opportunity, and maybe not the barrier to entry of needing to swipe a credit card and being in, I don't know how many years of debt there as well. But the issue is, I'm still going to take 12, which means around 196 of them now is going to get displaced like our normal program as well. Now I want to take a step back. I want to talk about a different piece of the pipeline, one that I'm doing work as well, which is the universities. So at the University of Pretoria, I am one of their final year engineering supervisors. So looking after the projects that they are doing. Anyone that did engineering at University of Pretoria will know that that last year, you basically have to do a final year project. And it's interesting because anywhere else in the degree, there's various different places for you to get marks, for you to be able to pass a module. And then you get to that final year, and with that final project, it's a 10-minute demonstration on what you've done for the year that decides whether you pass or fail engineering. And that's interesting, right? Because that's testing for something else. There's no place to hide. And technically engineering is a 4-year degree, but a lot of the engineers that work through it will know it's actually a 5, a 6, or a 7, or an 8-year degree, because it takes a while to learn the mindset that you need to be able to take a problem at the start of the year, break it down into its separate components, solve each of those components, and then present a final product at the end of the year. Now, I'm fortunate enough to be one of those project supervisors there. So when one of those students actually show promise that they want to get into cybersecurity, if I'm satisfied with them there, I'm basically having them skip the line. They don't need to do our internship. And the reason for it is if I think about our 2-week in-person internship, it's actually just a 2-week interview that we have with that person. We're taking the 2 weeks to really, again, try to drill down and whether or not they have the right mindset or not. And if I'm working on a final year project with someone for a year, I basically have the opportunity to have a year-long interview with them. So by the end of the year, once they've submitted their report, once they've done that demonstration, if they're interested to get into cybersecurity, I think at that point it's deserved for them to skip the line and basically join immediately. And things are also starting to change in the university space as well. In my engineering degree, and I think any of the other people that have studied through that type of program, you had one module that taught you about cybersecurity. It was the Intro to Cryptography. I can implement AES from first principles. And it's something that I use every single day working in cybersecurity. Like, that's the thing that is used. And that's an issue, right? If that's the only introduction you have to cybersecurity, I think it's leaving so much of the field that you don't actually get to explore. Now, WITS have decided to create a postgraduate program. MWR and CISPA, which is a German research institute, is working together with them to create this program. And they're running it for the very first time this year. There's about 12 cohorts, so 12 students that are now doing their postgraduate honors in cybersecurity, and hopefully will move on to doing their masters and even their PhDs in cybersecurity as well. It's dedicated with dedicated modules on cybersecurity content. It's not some tack on that happens to computer science or information technology, but a dedicated thing that's out there as well. And I'm also doing co-supervision, which is very, very interesting that for the first time, I think that South Africa is doing very, very deep cybersecurity academic research as well, which is just as important for this pipeline. But when I look at this, the issue that I have is that I personally think the formal pathway for universities is only arriving now. That's a long path in the front, and I don't know where it's going to end. I don't even know if it's going to be successful. We're talking about students that have only joined the cohort now. They're still busy studying. They're busy doing the modules. They're busy doing those capstone assignments for honors and masters. We don't know where this road is going to take us. And it's a long bridge. It's a long journey to get us there. The other piece behind this for me is I'm thankful that VITs have gotten people like MWR involved and gotten people like CISPA involved, but it also makes me a little bit sad because it means that the university does not have the skills, the capacity, the resources, the people to be able to present cybersecurity on their own now. The fact that they have to go to a German research institute tells me that those skills do not currently exist within South Africa as well. And where this leaves us is if we think about the academic pipeline, then while it's great, if the students are only starting now and we have this gap in academics, those students are going to be the next lecturers. They're going to be the next supervisors in cybersecurity. So if we're lucky in industry, those students are probably going to reach us in about 3 to 5 years. If we're lucky, that's where they will move into the industry market, and we will then have the ability to recruit from formal education as well. So if we put all of this together, MWR takes 12 interns, which means from our first vantage point, from our normal recruitment pipeline, 38, in my opinion, good candidates just do not get a position. Secondly, with our virtual internship, that number has now gotten worse. There's 196 of them that have rocked up for the last 16 months, and we won't be able to give them a position. And if we think about formal education, it's going to be a while before we have the ability to recruit from there. But I want to say, I think the thing that I haven't said yet out loud, every time I talk to someone, they tell me that we have a skill shortage in cybersecurity. And my opinion is that's not the case. I think we have a capacity shortage. The skills are there. The interest is there. The people that want to get into cybersecurity are there. It's just that industry does not have the capacity to take them on. That's what I'm seeing here. MWR physically, at the size of the company that we are, I cannot take more than 12 of these people out there. But there is talent. There are people that are keen to getting involved. I don't know what it looks like. I'm going to ask free asks of industry here. I don't even know whether these ones are possible, but I do want to ask them, this is my basic plea to industry, to ask them to do some things. If you cannot even do these free asks, just remove CISP from your things. Come on, guys, for a junior position, that shouldn't be there. So like, even if you just do that, I'll call it a win. But my free asks for industry today, the first one is there any possibility for anyone in the room to be able to take the candidates that we can't? Right? I have shortlists. I have people that, in my opinion, are really, really good. Is there any possibility that we can send these candidates to someone in industry? That we can reach out and we can say, hey, here's our list. I don't know whether you want to interview any of these people, if they would be the fits for the roles that you are looking for here. They won't have CISP on their CV, I can almost promise you that. But I do think if you are more interested in testing for the mindset, testing for the person that can actually do the job, figure out the problem, how it works and what the solution should be, these are the type of candidates that I want you to look at. The only other ask that I have is we're now going to give them the certificate of completion for the virtual internship, but this is like almost like an NFT because it doesn't really mean anything if no one out there in industry actually looks at this certificate of completion. So my ask is there any way, if HR is your first line filter for your recruitment, whether they can at least be made aware that if someone comes with the certificate of completion, that it counts some form of point towards them making it through to the next round of recruitment as well. Then the second ask is a more difficult one. For MWR and for the people that start with us, because we recruit directly out of universities, as much as we are training them on cybersecurity, there's a large portion of work that we're doing in just training them on how to be an adult. It is very, very interesting when people come from that student background, like, how do you do a proper job? How do you apply for sick leave? How do you do these different things, right? Like, trust me, the bar is sometimes a little bit low in where you need to start with the training here. But the thing behind it is that and this problem for me is getting worse, is when these new joiners in cybersecurity see the people that are already in industry, they basically see these titans, right? They see these people that have just like been from success to success to success, and they're now in these massive type of positions. And I don't really understand how they got there. And that's because when anyone look at like a LinkedIn profile, when they look at what people put out there into the world, it just shows the success story. It doesn't tell the bumpy version of how you've actually gotten there. And we have ends with almost all of the universities of South Africa. We try to do the work to really give them the really, what does it look like, the scrappy version of cybersecurity. But MWR is one corner in the cybersecurity world. We can't show them the GRC roles. We can't really show them the blue team roles. We can't even show them the ISO roles. We cannot show them what that looks like in cybersecurity and how people can get involved in those places there as well. And the ask is, if you are keen to share your story, whatever that looks like, whether it's a Q&A session, whether it is a presentation to a university, even to the new joiners at MWR, it helps if they see what industry actually looks like there as well. We would be keen to get you involved. And you can reach out to us. We're willing to sort of like be that liaison to get you to present and teach these students a little bit of what does it look like in your corner of cybersecurity as well. And then the third, and I think the hardest ask that I have here today is there any possibility of creating more internship programs for these people that are interested? I can take 24, I can teach them about cybersecurity. If there is 12 companies here that have the opportunity to even take 2 interns, that means 24 more people are getting a taste of what it looks like in cybersecurity. And I'm hoping that the cybersecurity bug bites them and it's the industry that they actually want to get in. If you want to sort of like build this yourself, reach out to us. We're happy to share all of the mistakes, all of the different things that we've done wrong, what worked for us, what doesn't work, to share how you can build these things out there as well. If you want to build it with our help, we're happy to share all of our resources. The only thing for me that is intellectual property is my challenges. And the reason for that is as soon as a challenge goes to the internet, I cannot assess someone with it anymore. So I'm happy to share anything except my challenges. I'll help you to build your own, but my challenges remain mine. That's the only intellectual property that I have. And then if you want to build it with us, if this looks like it's a partnership, happy to do that. Just being clear, partnership doesn't mean that you ship your people to us and say like, hey, I'll pay you money to train them. Again, I have a capacity problem, right? So like I need a partnership here if we're going to build something where we are actually going to train people. But even if we can take 12 organizations with 2 more people, is 24 more in here, that's basically double what MWR is able to achieve in a year. And I think why it's okay for me to talk about it being that difficult is because I don't need any organization to be perfect in doing this. I don't think MWR's recruitment is perfect. But if a lot of us are doing this imperfectly, it's going to beat one of us trying to do the perfect recruitment, and we can get these people in there. And speaking about that, I do want to give a little bit of an introduction for our speakers for today. Ethan is going to be talking today about AI and pen testing. So if you wrote your hiring for cybersecurity in like 2015, good luck. Like if you haven't updated from there, because I think the skills that we need in cybersecurity or how we test for those skills are changing again. Right? And that's going to be important. Then Logan, at the end of today, is going to be talking about a red team choose your own adventure. And what I want you to keep in the back of your mind with that type of talk as well, as you're having fun with it, is that we need a specific creative mindset. It's not really about what the candidate in front of you knows right now. It's about the mindset that they have to be able to learn something new. That's what we're trying to cultivate when we're talking about the creative people in cybersecurity. And Jono will be doing the talk on incident response for us today. And again, I think that you will see that incident response with everyone saying AI this, AI that. Even we have an AI talk today as well. Incidents might look a lot more similar than what you would feel comfortable with, but they are growing. There's an increase in the amount of incidents that we are seeing, and we need creative people to solve them for us as well. So on that note, my ask to everyone is that you please stop waiting for that CISP unicorn and help us to build the pipeline. Thank you very much.